Trident Studios, London. A 25-year-old man with thinning hair and conventional features walked into the recording booth as David Jones from Brixton. When he emerged months later, he had become something that had never existed before in popular music. An alien rock star from another planet who would redefine what it meant to be a performer, an artist, and a human being. Ziggy Stardust wasn't just a character David Bowie created. It was a revolution disguised as entertainment, a challenge to every assumption about gender, sexuality, and artistic identity wrapped in the most compelling package rock music had ever seen. But this transformation didn't happen overnight. It was the result of years of artistic frustration, commercial failure, and a desperate search for an identity that would allow David Bowie to express everything he felt about art, performance, and the future of human consciousness. By 1971, Bowie had released several albums that showcased his songwriting ability, but failed to capture the public imagination. He was talented, but talent without a compelling persona was just noise in the increasingly crowded landscape of early 1970s rock music. The inspiration for Ziggy came from multiple sources that swirled together in Bowie's imagination like ingredients in some cosmic recipe. He was obsessed with science fiction, particularly the idea that humanity was not alone in the universe and that contact with alien intelligence was inevitable. He was also fascinated by Japanese kabuki theater, with its elaborate costumes and stylized performances that transformed ordinary actors into mythological beings. Most importantly, he was influenced by the androgynous rock performers he saw emerging from the underground, artists who were beginning to challenge traditional ideas about masculine and feminine presentation. The musical foundation for what would become the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars was laid during sessions that felt more like seances than recording dates. Bowie would arrive at Trident Studios with fragments of songs, half-formed concepts, and a burning desire to create something that would shock the world into paying attention. He was working with producer Ken Scott and a group of musicians who understood that they weren't just making an album. They were creating a mythology. The character of Ziggy Stardust emerged gradually, like a photograph developing in a dark room. Bowie envisioned an alien rock star who had come to Earth during its final 5 years, a messianic figure who would deliver humanity through the power of rock and roll, before ultimately being destroyed by his own success and the violence of his fans. It was a story that operated on multiple levels: science fiction, religious allegory, and commentary on the dangerous relationship between performers and their audiences. The visual transformation was as important as the musical one. Bowie began working with hairstylist Susie Fussy to create the shock of red hair that would become Ziggy's signature feature. The color wasn't just aesthetic choice, it was a declaration of war against the natural order, a way of signaling that this performer existed outside the normal categories of human appearance. The makeup, designed with theatrical precision, created androgynous features that challenged every assumption about rock star masculinity. The costumes were equally revolutionary. Working with designer Freddie Beretti and later Kansai Yamamoto, Bowie created a wardrobe that borrowed from science fiction, Japanese theater, and high fashion while remaining functional enough for live performance. These weren't just clothes, they were armor for an alien invasion. Each outfit designed to transform the wearer into something beyond human classification. Recording the album became an exercise in controlled madness. Songs like 5 Years opened the album with an apocalyptic vision delivered through Bowie's most emotionally vulnerable vocal performance to date. The track established the mythology while demonstrating that Ziggy Stardust wasn't just a costume. It was a vehicle for artistic expression that allowed Bowie to access emotional depths he had never previously explored. Starman became the song that would introduce Ziggy to the world, a perfect pop confection that made the alien invasion sound like the most natural thing imaginable. The lyrics spoke directly to isolated teenagers who felt like outsiders in their own communities, offering them a cosmic perspective that transformed their alienation into evidence of their special destiny. When Bowie performed the song on Top of the Pops, draping his arm around guitarist Mick Ronson in a gesture of casual intimacy, he communicated more about changing social attitudes in 30 seconds than most artists managed in entire careers. The creation of Ziggy required Bowie to study performance in ways that went far beyond traditional rock concert presentation. He researched mime, theater, dance, and cabaret, developing a stage presence that was part alien visitation, part religious ceremony, part high fashion show. Every gesture was choreographed, every costume change planned, every moment designed to reinforce the mythology he was creating. But Ziggy Stardust was more than just an elaborate costume party. The character allowed Bowie to address themes that were revolutionary for rock music in 1972. Sexual fluidity, gender ambiguity, the possibility of human evolution, the relationship between performer and audience. All of these concepts were woven into songs that worked perfectly as 3-minute pop confections while operating on deeper levels for listeners who wanted to dig beneath the surface. The album's narrative structure was unprecedented in rock music. This wasn't just a collection of songs, it was a concept album that told the story of an alien rock star's rise and fall while serving as commentary on fame, creativity, and the price of artistic authenticity. Songs like Rock and Roll Suicide didn't just end the album, they completed a mythological cycle that had begun with Ziggy's arrival and concluded with his inevitable destruction. Live performance became the arena where Ziggy Stardust truly came alive. Bowie's concerts during the Ziggy era were theatrical events that transformed rock venues into alien spacecraft, with the audience serving as witnesses to an extraterrestrial cultural exchange. The Spiders from Mars, his backing band, were more than musicians. They were fellow travelers in this cosmic journey, each member styled to support the overall mythology. The impact of Ziggy Stardust extended far beyond music. Fashion, gender expression, theatrical performance, visual presentation, all of these areas were influenced by what Bowie created during this period. He proved that rock stars could be characters, that albums could be novels, that concerts could be art installations, and that popular entertainment could address the deepest questions about human identity and possibility. But perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of Ziggy Stardust was how the character functioned as a bridge between the underground and the mainstream. Bowie took ideas that had been circulating in art schools, underground clubs, and avant-garde theater, and presented them in a package that was accessible to teenagers buying records in suburban shopping centers. He made the strange familiar and the familiar strange, creating a new template for how popular culture could function as a vehicle for cultural change. The decision to kill Ziggy Stardust in 1973, announced during what would be the character's final performance at the Hammersmith Odeon, was as calculated and dramatic as everything else about the persona. Bowie understood that mythologies require deaths as much as births, that characters who overstay their welcome risk becoming parodies of themselves. By ending Ziggy's story at the height of his popularity, Bowie ensured that the character would remain forever frozen in a moment of perfect artistic achievement. Looking back, the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars stands as one of the most important albums in rock history, not just for its musical innovations, but for its complete reimagining of what popular music could accomplish. David Bowie didn't just create a character, he created a new possibility for human expression that influenced everyone from punk rockers to pop stars to performance artists. The 25-year-old man from Brixton who walked into Trident Studios in 1972 emerged as something unprecedented. A rock star who proved that identity was fluid, that gender was performance, that creativity could be a form of evolution, and that sometimes the most important thing an artist could do was become someone completely different. Ziggy Stardust lasted only 18 months, but the revolution he started continues to this day. Inspiring anyone who has ever felt like an alien in their own life to embrace their strangeness and turn it into art.